Welcome to the Mortuary Masterclass, brought to you by the Champion Company, where preservation meets purpose, and every step is part of your journey to safer solutions. In this episode, we're tackling a topic that seems to circle back through the profession every few years: waterless embalming. You hear it mentioned at seminars. Someone brings it up during a difficult case. Maybe a colleague says, "I went waterless on this one, and it worked great." And it usually leads to the same question: is waterless embalming actually better, or just another tool for certain situations? To understand that, it helps to step back for a moment and look at what we really mean when we say waterless. Because technically speaking, true waterless embalming doesn't really exist. What embalmers usually mean is no water added. The fluids themselves already contain water. Modern arterial fluids require it as a solvent, so the primary chemicals remain stable and functional. Formaldehyde, for example, relies on water as part of its chemistry to remain usable in solution. So when someone says waterless embalming, what they're really describing is embalming without adding additional water to the tank. And that's where things get interesting. A lab comparison looked at the actual composition of two typical solutions. One prepared using what embalmers commonly call the waterless technique. The other uses conventional dilution. If you could see the chart from that analysis, it would show two columns side by side. The waterless solution contained roughly 54 to 62 ounces of water already present in the chemicals themselves. That mixture created a final injected solution that was about 60% water. The final concentration of formaldehyde in that solution landed around 3 to 4%. Now compare that to conventional dilution. That solution contained roughly 102 to 109 ounces of water per gallon once everything was mixed. The total water content ended up around 80 to 85%. The final formaldehyde concentration in the conventional mixture was about 1.5 to 2.2%. So when you compare the two side by side, conventional embalming solutions contain about 20 to 25% more water than the waterless approach. Translated into prep room terms, that's roughly 25 to 30 ounces more water per gallon of solution. Across an entire embalming, that difference adds up to about 60 to 70 ounces of additional water injected. But another part of the picture often surprises people. That is, fluid usage. In a typical conventional embalming, most embalmers use 7 to 9 bottles of arterial chemical. In a typical conventional embalming, most embalmers use 7 to 9 bottles of arterial fluid, co-injectants/additives fluids. Chemical. With the waterless approach, that number can increase significantly. In the study, waterless cases typically use 20 to 24 bottles. That's an increase of roughly 225 to 300% in fluid usage. So while the injected solution contains less water, the total chemical volume used in the case is substantially higher. Now let's look at how those cases actually performed. Over several months, embalmings were conducted using both approaches. Most of the cases were routine, with about 20 to 30% classified as difficult or extreme. Think of the situations we all recognize: frozen remains, delayed embalming, advanced decomposition, severe disease conditions, cases with significant edema. Each embalmed body was evaluated several hours after treatment. The rating criteria included overall preservation, fluid distribution and circulatory clearing, degree of rigidity, and cosmetic appearance suitable for viewing. And this is where the results become practical. In normal cases, there were no significant differences between bodies embalmed using conventional dilution and those embalmed using waterless techniques. Both approaches produce comparable preservation and cosmetic outcomes. However, one consistent difference did appear. Waterless cases tend to show greater rigidity. When the difficult or extreme cases were evaluated, the results shifted somewhat. Those waterless cases were generally rated higher in preservation and fluid distribution, and in some situations showed improved circulatory clearing, which makes sense from a chemistry standpoint. Higher concentrations of preservative chemicals can sometimes move more aggressively through compromised vascular systems, particularly when circulation is limited or tissue fluid levels are high. But here's the key takeaway. Waterless embalming performed well in extreme situations, yet it proved largely unnecessary in the majority of routine cases. Conventional dilution, using standard industry dilution rates, produced successful embalming results in most situations. And that brings us something important about the evolution of embalming chemistry. Historically, formaldehyde built the foundation of modern embalming. Its preservative capability made long-distance transportation and public viewing possible in ways earlier generations could not achieve. That legacy still matters. But modern formulations have expanded the chemistry available to embalmers. Today's arterial fluids include carefully balanced humectants, co-injection chemicals, water conditioners, and additional preservative agents like glutaraldehyde that support preservation while helping manage tissue response. Those formulations often reduce the need for extreme techniques, like going fully dilution-free. In many situations, chemistry already provides the balance between preservation strength and tissue condition. That's part of the profession's ongoing roadmap, the next step forward in your journey to safer solutions. Not abandoning traditional chemistry, refining it, making it more controlled, more predictable, more adaptable to real-world cases. Think about a typical prep room moment. You raise the carotid, start injection, and watch distribution begin to move through the face and distal vessels. Ever notice how sometimes the right solution just seems to flow better? Clearing improves. The color returns gradually. The tissue stays firm but still natural. That formulation works the way it was designed. And it's also where preparation strategy still matters. Injection pressures in the study range from 2 to 40 pounds, with flow rates averaging 1 gallon of solution every 10 to 12 minutes. Adjustments were made depending on the case, using multi-site injection and intermittent drainage where necessary. Cavity treatment followed standard practice. Thorough aspiration followed by treatment using cavity fluids containing combinations of glutaraldehyde, formaldehyde, and phenolic compounds with reaspiration and reinjection when needed. All the familiar steps. They remind us of that technique and chemistry work together. Waterless embalming isn't a magic switch. It's simply another option on the prep room roadmap. For most cases, conventional dilution works very well. In more difficult situations, reducing dilution can increase preservative strength when circulation or tissue conditions are compromised. So, the real question isn't whether waterless embalming is better. It's when it makes sense. The best embalmers read the body, adjust the solution, and move the case forward. That mindset continues guiding the profession, one case at a time across the prep table. Thanks for tuning in to this special edition of the Mortuary Masterclass, championing the prep room with purpose, because embalmers matter, and every step forward is part of your journey to safer solutions. That's the champion difference.